At some point, and I really don't know when, the city of Cleveland became one with its football team. Together they rise and fall, in victory, in defeat, inseparable. It's a bond that cannot be severed, and Lord knows it's been tried. For better or worse, the Browns are Cleveland. It's the innovation that shook the foundation of the sport.
You just can't make a mistake against the Browns.
It's the transcendent athlete of an entire generation.
He's the greatest running back of all time.
It's throwing passes on knees that can barely walk. It's begging the universe for just one time.
One time, baby.
52
one
seconds
time.
to play. Right back to throw. He throws it in the end zone. It is a touchdown! Touchdown! Cleveland with 52 seconds left. It's Reggie Rucker.
It's Bernie, Ozzie, and Lou the Toe. It's Dave Logan down the right sideline, and Braylon breaking it long. It's Otto, Leroy Kelly, and the next great hero. It's the Pound, the Lake, and the Turnpike War with Pittsburgh. It's September where all hope is reborn, and it's the postseason, the first and eternal home of one of the greatest franchises in professional sports.
Everybody standing here at the stadium, and once again, it's Pandemonium Palace at the House of Thrills on Lake Erie.
When the Browns joined the NFL in 1950, they kept the same uniform numbering system that had been used in the All-America Conference. Backs like Otto Graham and Dub Jones, for example, wore numbers of 60 and higher. This system was different from the way the NFL assigned numbers. To avoid confusion, the NFL streamlined the numbering system in 1952. And new numbers were assigned to the 3 AAFC teams that had been integrated into the NFL. Backs like Otto Graham now wore numbers lower than 50.
Otto Graham used to wear the number 60, and when the numbering system changed, rather than give him a new jersey, they merely peeled off the old numbers and sewed on his new number. You can see the outline of the number 60 there if you look closely.
Max Beatty, number 58, became Max Beatty, number 88. And Dante Lavelli had worn number 56 in the AAFC. His new number was 86. 86 had been halfback Dub Jones's number until he changed to number 40. Place kicker and offensive tackle Lou Groza wore number 46 as a member of the original Browns. Then he was given number 76 in the revised system. Marion Motley had worn number 76 for 6 seasons, but in 1952, his jersey was emblazoned with the number 36. Middle guard Bill Willis wore number 30 in the AAFC. Then he was given Otto Graham's old number in 1952. Willis even wore number 63 in an instructional film. Of course, from 1946 through 1955, the most important number for the Browns was the total of victories they achieved.
The involvement of the Browns and the city of Cleveland was so great and so intimate. You walked out the street in the morning when you go out and go to practice, and there'd be the postman, and he'd, "Hi, Mike, how are you? How are we going to do this week, you know?"
The well-wishers are not confined to just families of the players. Many of the fans take time to get pictures and, of course, autographs. Billy Bodeker was so impressed by this autograph seeker's nice smile that he married her. Not bad.
It was just the team and the city were so close and we were intertwined, and if we lost, the whole city was morose. If we won, the city was jubilant.
Under head coach Paul Brown, the Browns gave Cleveland fans more reason to be jubilant than morose. In the first 10 years of the team's existence, beginning in 1946, the Browns won 84% of their games. They played for the championship of their league every year and won 7 titles. Boasting a perfect balance between innovative offense and opportunistic defense, the Browns of this period became one of the greatest dynasties in the history of professional sports.
Lou Saban picks this one out of the air, and he's off to the promised land for the final score of the game.
To me, they were the Yankees of football, and you stepped in that huddle with Marion Motley and Dub Jones and Otto Graham. We're going to win the football game. That's it. We never talked about anything else except winning.
The best show in football, that's what it was.
The best show in football opened in 1946. Most of the performers were returning war veterans.
These men had come back from the service. They'd been in a war. This was a picnic after what they'd been through.
I was in the Battle of Bastogne and the Battle of the Bulge.
The American Third Army pushes farther into the crumbling German citadel, racing other Allied armies.
Most of us were in harm's way, so to speak. Getting back out of the service, we were ready for whatever was out there as far as football was concerned. We knew that Paul was a very tough man and very disciplined, that we were ready for things like that because that's exactly what we had while we were in the service.
It was a real competitive, tough proposition. But once you made it, it was a lot of fun.
The Browns were charter members of the All-America Conference, which began in 1946. The Browns won the AAFC title in every year of the league's 4-year existence. They established a 29-game winning streak that extended over parts of 3 seasons. In 1948, the Browns put together a perfect 14-0 season.
It's a wide play to the left. Baumgartner fumbles on the 20. George Young scoops it up, and he's off on an 18-yard sprint to the goal. And Cleveland goes out in front, 14-0. From the 5-yard line, Motley takes the pitch out, and aided by good blocking, makes his 3rd touchdown of the day as Cleveland wins the All-America Conference Championship 49-7.
The Browns meet at a downtown hotel the morning of a trip, are carried to the airport in big, roomy limousines. And it takes big limousines to transport such Huskies as Alex Agassi, Frank Gatsky, and John Yoniker.
Unlike the NFL, the AAFC had teams on the West Coast, so travel was an often difficult, drawn-out ordeal.
Traveling from Cleveland to L.A. took you 24 hours. We had 4 motor planes, go from Cleveland to Chicago, Chicago to Denver, and Denver down to L.A.
Welcome aboard, Cleveland Browns. We'll fly at 10,000 feet with a speed of 230 miles an hour, and I know we'll have a nice trip.
One time we were playing L.A., coming out of Denver, all the fat guys sat in the back of the plane, see? And you got to go up over those mountains. It took us an hour in that B-24 to go up over the mountains.
In 1948, the Browns closed out a perfect season by playing 3 road games in 8 days. The trip started in New York, then continued on the West Coast.
The Browns had to play 3 games in 8 days. The third was in San Francisco with the division title at stake. They trailed at the half, but this touchdown pass from Graham to Dub Jones helped achieve a 30-28 victory and the title. 4 years in a row, the Browns remained unconquerable in the All-America Conference, winning 4 consecutive championships. With the title game of 1949, the league passed out of existence and the Browns moved into the National Football League, along with 2 other members of the All-America Conference. Would the Browns continue on top against new opposition?
For 4 years, we read what a lousy league we were in, what lousy teams we were, that we couldn't even begin to play against the NFL. They had made so many derogatory comments about our league. Their worst team could beat our best team. So we were emotionally ready to go. We wanted to show them that we had a good football team.
Coming in from the All-America Conference, nobody knew how good the players in that league were. Nobody knew whether their 4 consecutive championships in the All-America Conference were worth anything. Would they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning NFL champs? And the league scheduled the opening game of the season between those 2 teams in Philadelphia.
By
ironic as it may seem, pro football's World Series takes place the first week of the 1950 season as the Cleveland Browns, champions of the All-American Conference, take on the defending kingpins of the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. 85,000 fans gets a thrill in the opening period as Cleveland's Don Phelps is long gone on a 70-yard scamper to the end zone.
Phelps's touchdown was nullified by a penalty, but 5 Cleveland touchdowns stood up. The new kids on the block proved superior to the old guard Eagles in every phase of the game.
I can say quite honestly, no sports team in the history of sports, no matter what sport it was better prepared emotionally than we were for that game. We were so ready, we were foaming at the mouth almost, we were ready to play that game. And we went in there and, of course, we killed them.
Cleveland killed the competition throughout 1950. The best show in football made a smashing NFL debut. The Browns marched to a 10-2 regular season record. Marion Motley, number 76, led the league in rushing. The defense featured future Hall of Famers Bill Willis and Len Ford, number 53.
Against the Philadelphia Eagles, Lenny Ford proved his greatness as a rushing lineman as he drove Adrian Burke into the goalpost.
The defense registered 55 takeaways and led the league in fewest points allowed. The Browns earned a chance to play for the NFL championship. At Cleveland Stadium, the Browns hosted the high-scoring Los Angeles Rams in a game that still ranks as one of the most exciting in postseason history. Otto Graham threw for 4 touchdowns and 298 yards, and rushed for 99 yards in a back-and-forth battle that saw the lead change hands 5 times. But despite Cleveland's firepower, the Browns were trailing 28-27 with only a little over 3 minutes left to play.
We were 1 point behind and going down the field in the last quarter with a couple minutes left in the ball game, and I ran a quarterback draw play, hit from the blind side, and I fumbled. And I was so discouraged. Here I thought, our first year in the NFL, Graham fumbles the football. Graham lost the chance to beat the Rams. And so I headed up for the sideline. I was afraid to talk to Paul Brown, even look at him. And I tried to avoid him, but I couldn't. And he came over to me, and he patted me on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Oz, we're still going to get him." And I can't tell you how much that meant to me personally.
When the Browns got the ball back with 1:48 remaining, Graham's running and passing brought Cleveland to the Rams' 11-yard line.
The Rams now led 28-27, but the Browns never gave up. With passes like this one from Graham to Rex Baumgartner, the Browns fought back.
There were just 28 seconds showing on the clock when Lou Groza attempted a field goal.
Groza will attempt a field goal. It'll be 15 yards. He boots the ball. It's up in the air. It's gone!
In their first season in the NFL, the upstart Browns, who had supposedly played in an inferior league, emphatically proved that they belonged, and that Paul Brown was a truly visionary head coach.
I consider Paul Brown the greatest coach or manager in the century. In fact, in the ESPN poll of the greatest coaches or managers, I have voted for Paul Brown #1 in that.
Paul Brown was somebody who was more serious, more methodical, more thorough about the way he coached the game than any of his contemporaries. He was very much ahead of his time.
Paul Brown is probably the single most influential figure in professional football from the 50s. I mean, he revolutionized professional coaching.
He brought this sort of academic seriousness and academic rigor to the way he approached the game.
Lou Groza has a question, and Coach Paul has the answer.
Paul Brown's classroom produced many future head coaches. Assistants Blanton Collier and Weeb Eubank went on to coach world championship teams, as did a pair of Cleveland players from this era.
who won 4 Super Bowls, Chuck Noll, who was my roommate for 3 years at the Browns.
Interceptions got the Browns out of many tight spots. This one by Chuck Noll brought one of 5 touchdowns.
Don Shula, winningest coach in the history of Football League, was a Brown player.
The stage was set for a brilliant interception by Don Shula.
In addition to Noll and Shula, Otto Graham, number 14, Walt Michaels, Abe Gibran, Lou Saban, number 20, Lou Rimkus, and Mike McCormick all served as NFL head coaches. These men point to Paul Brown's enormous influence.
The style that Paul Brown set when he started coaching professional football after the war in the All-America Conference was a style that was adopted by every coach who came after him and still exists to this day.
Paul was as much an innovator as anybody in the history of the league. Spending the night before the game in a hotel, full-time coaches. I mean, he started all of that. Playbooks.
Paul Brown's playbooks are best amplified by a statement made by the coach some years ago. Football is played in the mind as well as in the heart.
First one with a face mask.
I'm the first guy who wore a face mask. I hurt my lip, got a cut against the 49ers.
Otto suffered a deep facial wound on this play, one that required 15 stitches to close.
Paul Brown came up with a great big plastic thing about 2 inches high, 1/2 inch thick. He molded it on there for the next game. And I've heard players say, you're not a football player until you get some of your teeth knocked out. That's idiotic. You know, who wants your teeth knocked out? You know, that's ridiculous.
Brown called every play from the sideline and shuttled a pair of messenger guards back and forth to get his call from the sideline to the huddle.
Then he got the idea to put a radio in the quarterback's helmet.
This helmet here was worn by George Ratterman when Paul Brown had a radio receiver inserted into his quarterback's earpiece.
You felt like an idiot with the thing because it was an antenna and you would have to turn like that. So I'd have to stand outside the huddle going like this, you know, until he came in loud and clear.
There's a lot of myth and legend to those few games that George Ratterman actually wore the helmet. But it is in fact true that on the receiving end, Ratterman was picking up police signals and some calls from the concession stands. In fact, there was a story that he heard a robbery in progress during the course of a game.
The Browns employed a blocking scheme known as the Cup that marked the beginning of modern pass protection.
Edgar Jones in motion. Graham fades inside his golden cup. It's a deep pass in the corner.
With Otto Graham's expert ball handling, the Browns' offense emphasized deception, movement, and speed. Cleveland was known as the pass, trap, and screen team.
It was Motley who made the trap famous. With a jet start, Motley was past the line of scrimmage in a flash.
But one of the bread and butter plays in Paul Brown's playbook wasn't originally drawn up on the chalkboard.
The first draw play that we put the name to it was an accident.
Otto was going to throw a quick pass. So that what all he did was get the ball and stand up like that. And there wasn't nobody there.
Looked up, the Bulls are coming in a hurry. Real quick, he just handed it to Marion Motley.
They were after his buns, not mine. And they gave me the ball. Everybody ran right by me. And I took off. Paul Brown come out and told us next day, we got a new play. He said we got the draw play.
All right, here we are on a draw. Leg draw right.
That's what it is today. They call it the draw play.
Brown was a master of designing X's and O's, but it was how he managed men that made the Browns a winner.
His ability to judge personnel and get the best out of them, he was far beyond anyone that I'd ever met.
He really didn't care how big you were. All he wanted you to be as fast. If you won your races or the fastest in your position, didn't make any mental errors, you were on number one. You automatically knew if you're going to play number one. As soon as you made a mistake, you dropped back one, the other guy'd hop in.
And if you were the best football player under Paul Brown, I don't care how much money the other guy was making, you got to start that game.
Brown signed the best players, regardless of their race or religion.
I told them at the outset that I didn't care whether they were white, black, yellow, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish. I was after the 35 or 40 best football players.
If there were a black ball player at training camp, if that black ball player was
the better man, he would be on our team. We had many black ball players for the Cleveland Browns. Beginning in 1946, this was before Jackie Robinson appeared on the scene.
3 years before Robinson broke the color line in baseball, middle guard Bill Willis and fullback Marion Motley were among the first black athletes to play major league sports.
Big 240-pound Marion Motley. And don't let that name Marion fool you.
Motley was a trailblazing player and a bulldozing fullback. But while the future Hall of Famer could shed tacklers with ease, he found it harder to avoid bigotry.
We get in the game and they'd call you alligator bait, they could say. And all of them bad names.
On one particular play, which stands out in my mind, Motley was met at the line of scrimmage, and the guys stood him up, and they kept taking shots at him. So I ran over, and with one fella, I grabbed him off of Motley, and he said, "Get your black hands off of me." Well, I was very angry, so I simply reached over and grabbed him with both hands on his shoulders, and now I have my hands on your shoulder, you make me take them off of you.
Bill Willis, one of the great defensive linemen of pro football, shows some of the finer points of line play. Every motion Willis makes is pointed toward the tackle, and when he makes them, brother, they stay tackled.
Because I wasn't the biggest man in the league, I had to be able to very quickly hit this shoulder, hit that shoulder, go over the top, go underneath, go straight, right into the man, change up. I had a desire to get to the quarterback or the runner before he got started. Didn't want him to get up ahead of steam. No.
Paul Brown didn't tolerate prejudice on the Browns. All of Cleveland's African-American players were accepted on a team whose members were competitive off the field as well as on.
Whenever athletes congregate, it has to be a contest. This tremendous match on the table tennis side has Horace Gillum matching chop shots with Bill Willis. Gillum was sort of the unofficial champion of the team, but he got plenty of competition.
Otto Graham and George Raderman pitch horseshoes. The accurate Graham tries his best Sunday pitch. Hey, Otto, you've taken 3 shoes. The Browns have quite a time around the horseshoe pit, and many friendly battles are waged.
For Paul Brown, ping pong and horseshoes were the kind of wholesome activities he could endorse. Players with a penchant for more unsavory endeavors were not welcomed by the upright head coach.
In my opening lecture, I always said to them that if you're a bum, a boozer, a chaser, I'm not interested in you making our team.
He didn't tolerate guys who fool around with other women and that kind of stuff. No way.
He wanted to control every aspect of his players' lives, on and off the field.
He believed in what they call the Tuesday rule. After Tuesday, don't touch your wife, keep away from sex.
And Dante Lavelli gets a fond farewell from his bride of a year.
He felt like it sapped their strength and made them less effective as football players on Sunday.
Brown leads calisthenics at League Park, site of the Browns' daily workouts.
He didn't tolerate guys that didn't work hard and study hard.
He was a stickler for a player's deportment and their table manners.
How you dress, how you talked, how you ate. He always said, don't slurp your soup.
He stressed the good guy, good person image. And if he felt a player couldn't meet that, then he was gone. He once traded Doug Adkins because he caught him belching in a meeting.
I think you win with high-grade people. I didn't want them to look like a pro team. I want them to look like an intercollegiate bunch that played for the sheer pleasure of beating somebody.
He wanted everybody in the country to respect the Browns.
I never heard him, Paul Brown, swear in all the 10 years I played for him. But he was very cynical.
He could get under your skin, no question about that. When he looks at you in the eye, if you can't do the job, but get somebody who can.
He would always say little things like, maybe you're not good enough, Bobby Mitchell.
I ran out of the pocket a couple times, and he felt I left too soon, and so he sent George Raderman in the ball game. I sat down on the bench, and I'm no more than 3 yards away from him. He turned and said to an assistant coach, well, at least now we have somebody in there at quarterback who has guts enough to stay in the pocket. If I had a gun, I would have shot him.
We went up to play the World Championship game against the Lions in Detroit, and in the middle of that game, this chant starts, "We want Raderman, we want Raderman." Finally, it got so loud that Brown had to recognize it anyway, had to do something about it. So he walks over to me, and I start to take off my jacket. Paul says, "George, people are calling for you up in the stands." I said, "Why don't you go sit up there for a while?"
They never told you what you did good. They always told you what you did bad. And you didn't want to get your name mentioned too often because you wouldn't be around for very long.
Ray Renfro tells a remarkable story of dropping a pass, had it just go right off his fingertips, and Brown just jumped straight up in the air, ran down to where Ray Renfro was almost at the sidelines, getting ready to go back on the field, grabbed him and yelled in his face, "You're through, you're washed up, you've finished, you can't hack it anymore."
Brown didn't like audibles, and Otto always hated not being able to call audibles on his own.
I'm not a dummy, and it always makes me appear like I didn't know what I was doing out there. And I must admit that I did change a few plays that he sent in, but I also will tell you, if I changed the play, it better darn well work, because if it didn't work, I was going to hear about it when I got to the sideline.
Brown's control was absolute. But in a 1951 game against the Bears, the coach's authority was directly challenged. Dub Jones scored 5 times and was on the verge of tying an NFL single-game touchdown record. Late in the game, when Brown sent a play call in that didn't involve Jones, the offense rebelled.
Paul Brown sent a play in, and Abe Gibran spoke up, "Blank, blank, blank, Paul Brown, call your own play. We got to get Dub a touchdown," because we knew one more touchdown, he'd tie the record. So I called a pass and a deep post pattern, and I hit him for a touchdown.
Graham led the lanky Dubber perfectly, and with Jones using fingertip magic, a 22-year record had been tied.
Paul couldn't say much when we scored a touchdown, but I know down deep inside he wanted to chew me out for not following his instructions. I'm sure of that. Paul Brown had the type of player playing for him. They were team players. He emphasized time and time again, winning is the most important thing. And so over a period of time, that was just shoved down our throats so much they were just part of us. And that's the only way we know how to play.
The Browns continued their winning ways in 1951. Otto Graham led the league in touchdown passes and passing yardage. The defense recorded 4 shutouts, while leading the NFL in scoring defense for the 2nd straight season.
Many of the highlights of 1951 are focused on the defensive platoon, for whom it should be said, well done, men of the defense.
The Browns rode into Los Angeles on an 11-game winning streak as they once again faced the Rams in the NFL championship game. The rematch was close, but uncharacteristic mistakes contributed to a 24-17 Cleveland defeat. The Browns returned to the championship game in 1952 and 1953 and lost both times to the Detroit Lions.
The clock shows less than 3 minutes to be played as Bobby Lane fades to fire another aerial. Lane's going all the way on this one. He has a man open. It's Jimmy Dorn, and he grabs it for a sensational touchdown.
Detroit coach Buddy Parker beat Paul Brown 8 straight times. The 1952 and 1953 title defeats were bitter ones for Brown, who had an easy explanation for the Lions' mastery. His counterpart had employed a covert operative.
Back when Buddy Parker was the coach there, they put a man up in the loft across the street from our practice site. 2 or 3 years there in a row, they knew the order in which we worked our short yardage plays and things of this sort.
It was back to the solitude of League Park and 4 days of intensive preparation for another game with the Lions, this one for the World Championship.
They just played what they saw, and it hurt us.
1954 was the year of uncertainty for the Browns. Coach Paul Brown was faced with his greatest rebuilding job since the Browns were organized in 1946. Player retirements and military service had cut deeply into the personnel. The coaching staff had been reorganized. With memories of the 1953 championship game still lingering, lion taming started with the first day of training at Hiram College, and Graham already was in the act.
Otto Graham had announced that 1954 was to be his last season as a pro. For 8 campaigns, he had been one of the game's finest players and the bedrock of the Browns.
The Browns will be counting heavily on the capable right arm of Otto Graham.
Graham was a tough and versatile athlete. He was a gifted runner who also threw a touch pass as well as any quarterback who ever played. In 5 of his 10 seasons as a pro, Automatic Otto led his league in passing. He finished second 3 other times. Graham had a nervous nature, but it helped him win 3 NFL MVP awards in 6 seasons.
My personality was such that I think I was always kind of cool under pressure. But I've always said that you have to have the confidence that you will do good, but at the same time, inside you have to have the fear that you might fail. Only once in my whole life did I ever go down to a football game and not go to the bathroom every 5 seconds before the game. Before we played every game, I could never digest the pregame meal. I would get a couple oranges, apples, or something like this, but the food itself, I couldn't eat to have a game. I was just too nervous. My stomach was turning over and over and over.
In his 10 pro seasons, Graham never missed a game as he led the Browns to a 114, 20, and 4 record that included 7 championships. Off the field, Graham cultivated a clean-cut image. As a football hero and a family man, he was a natural for endorsements and TV appearances. However, Graham was more natural behind the center than in front of the camera.
Plan on staying all night, Otto? This afternoon's game's over. There'll be more games.
I guess we're about the worst team that you've ever had.
No, you're wrong, Otto. You gave your best out there today. You and all the boys. It's just today you met a better team. They deserve to win. Defeats and setbacks are all a part of growing up. Sometimes we learn more from a defeat than we do from a victory. Now, you listen to me, young man. Adversity not only tests one's character, but it also strengthens it. And don't you forget that.
Otto the Arm was blessed with outstanding receivers. Max Speedy, number 88, Dub Jones, and Dante Lavelli, number 56, all thrived under Graham's leadership.
He had that unusual talent to bring out the best in his players. He made me so much better ball player than I would have been otherwise.
Dub Jones was probably the most intelligent receiver we ever had. Go back and say, you can beat this guy, take him and go deep. It's like taking candy from a baby. His judgment was great. Lavelli had the great hands.
Blue Fingers Lavelli, his teammates started to call him in 1946. And no one has ever found a reason to change that nickname. Blue Fingers proved his long layoff didn't affect his pass-catching ability by making one of his patented catches to draw first blood in the game.
He'd bite, fight, scratch, kick, anything to get that ball.
1954 was Lavelli's most productive season in the NFL. He caught 47 passes for over 800 yards. While Graham threw a career-low 11 scoring passes, he led the Browns to another championship game. At Cleveland Stadium, the Browns hosted Detroit. They were determined not to suffer their 4th consecutive title loss on the occasion of Graham's farewell to football.
Otto Graham, for 9 seasons, the spark plug of the Cleveland team, says he's playing his final game in a Browns uniform. Danny Lavelli, number 86, will be a prime target for the tosses of Otto the Arm.
Otto Graham uncorks a beautiful toss. Speedy Ray Renfro sprints into the open and snares Graham's pass for a sensational 37-yard touchdown play. Otto Graham, who is making his final Cleveland appearance a memorable one, arches a perfect lead pass to Ray Renfro, makes a tremendous catch for another Cleveland touchdown.
In a 56-10 victory, Graham enjoyed perhaps his finest day as a pro, as he passed for 3 touchdowns and ran for 3 more. At 34, he was poised to go out on top, except for one minor detail. In 1955, he decided to come back and play for another season.
Quarterback from Northwestern, weighing 205, Otto Graham.
The 1955 Browns compiled more yards rushing than passing for the first time since 1951. The opportunistic defense led the league in fewest points allowed for the 8th time in 10 seasons. But on the best show in football, the spotlight once again fell on Graham. In his final season, he led the NFL in passing while leading his team to its 10th consecutive championship game. At the Los Angeles Coliseum, Lou the Toe Groza kicked a field goal, but the game belonged to Graham, who threw for 2 scores and ran for 2 scores in a 38-14 win. Graham was given a hero send-off as he closed out his outstanding career.
We were so far ahead, so with a couple of minutes to play, just in courtesy to honor him, they took him out, and these were rival fans, but they gave him a standing ovation.
I was out there, of course, and I see our second quarterback coming in, so I realized, of course, what it was for. So I went over the sideline, and I just shook his hand and said, "Thanks, Paul."
And I said, "Thank you too, Otto." That's all that was said.
The opposing 80-some thousand people standing up and cheering for you, and they're not your backers, they're the Ram backers, that's got to impress you. It impressed me, believe me. I had tears in my eyes, quite frankly. I have them right now, even thinking about it.
Otto was really the greatest of all the players. No man ever took a team into the final game of the season as many times as he did.
To me, he's the greatest football player ever played, because in 10 years, he put us in a championship game 10 years in a row. A lot of guys had more ability and probably more skills, but he could win, and that's what counts, doesn't it?
While Otto Graham personified the Browns' dominance during this era, Cleveland's extraordinary success from 1946 through 1955 was a total team effort.
It wasn't necessarily Otto Graham or Marion Motley. Our strength was that we had a team. We had 22 ball players or more that were a team. It really made for a winning team.
Paul displayed this kind of attitude that we're a team here, all for one and one for all.
That's what Paul Brown brought to professional football. Team. That's the most important thing by far. Who cares who gets the credit, who gets the picture in the paper? What was the final score? That's what counts.
One of pro football's mightiest dynasties ended with the 1955 season. Although 1956 saw the team suffer its first ever losing record, the 1957 draft would bring the franchise's all-time greatest player. Paul Brown and the Browns were about to begin a new and exciting chapter in franchise history. In 1957, the Browns launched a new era with the drafting of Penn State quarterback Milt Plum and Syracuse fullback Jim Brown.
Jimmy Brown breaks loose for a spectacular game.
I'll tell you, when I first saw him and really wanted to get him if I could, I watched Syracuse play in a postseason game, and he just carried that football team.
When you got there, Paul was the dictator. He was the man. Everybody was afraid of him. And he ran a very tight organization. No one stepped out of line. And I kind of liked it that way. My first exhibition game, He started me, and I broke one up the middle and scored, and he called me off the field. He said, "You're my running back." So that's all I wanted.
Jim Brown became the first rookie in 14 years to lead the NFL in rushing. He finished more than 200 yards ahead of the runner-up, Chicago's Rick Caceres.
There's no stopping Jim Brown on an effort like this. He goes over the top and into the end zone for his 5th touchdown of the day.
I honestly believe that Jim Brown's the greatest football player to ever play in the National Football League. He did things on a football field that I have never seen since. Did it continually. Just cut across the field and shedding tacklers. Extraordinary.
Jimmy was an absolutely great back. I mean, it wasn't only his physical ability, it was his mental approach to the game and how determined he was to accomplish what he needed to accomplish.
There was nothing Jim Brown could not accomplish on the football field. He was 6'2" and 230 pounds with the balance of an Olympic gymnast and the speed of a world-class sprinter. The NFL had never seen anything quite like him.
If you talk about Zeus, or if you talk about Zeus' son Hercules, here was an individual who had a torso that was sculptured, obviously by God himself. Jim was perhaps the perfect instrument to run a football.
Here's a good example of these talents. It looks as if everyone has a shot at Jim, but he makes 40 yards before Dean Derby is able to stop him.
I had a great body. That was given to me by my mother and father and by God. And because I was about 232, 6'2", and I had balance and I had quickness, and I was very strong. Now, that sounds like I'm bragging about something, but that was the body that God gave me, and then I tried to keep that body in the best condition that I could.
With Jim Brown leading the way, the Browns rolled to a 9-2-1 finish in 1957. They had the best player and the best record in pro football during the regular season. In the championship game, the Browns were defeated by the Detroit Lions. But that disappointment only provided more motivation for Paul Brown. The following year, the Browns head coach added another dynamic weapon to the offense, halfback Bobby Mitchell.
We knew that he had been the Big Ten 60-yard indoor sprint champion, and everyone wanted to see that speed that he had. Bobby came in and just blistered, just boom, went off. And Paul always had individual timing races, and then the top, by position, you'd race against your nearest competitor. We had Jim Brown at the time, too. And you knew what was coming. So he matched Bobby and Jim. And Jim beat Bobby the first time. Bobby was such a competitor. For about, I'd say the next 4 to 5 weeks, it would be, hey, big fella. And they would race after practice. And everybody would stay to watch this race.
Bobby Mitchell and Jim Brown turned the 1958 season into their own personal track meet. Brown repeated as the rushing champion, and Mitchell averaged a league-high 6.3 yards per carry. The dynamic duo combined for 24 touchdowns. Even when a play broke down, they had the talent to save it. The bigger challenge was saving themselves.
Jim had to show his toughness at all times because everybody was after him. And if he went outside and started down that sideline where you can really get hurt with that force coming at you, he'd turn in there on him and try to make sure he balanced that force out and not get run out of bounds.
For me to run out of bounds because of a collision is to admit weakness. And the only time you go out of bounds is when they force you out or when you go out to stop the clock. But if a 185-pound cornerback is going to make me go out of bounds, I'm going to be building up his ego. I'm going to try to drop a forearm into his chest. And sometimes when you do that, miracles happen.
The route is blocked where Jim is supposed to run. But Jim finds another avenue and travels 30 yards to a touchdown.
In 1958, 59, 60, and 61, Jim Brown led the league in rushing every year. He scored 53 touchdowns in those 4 seasons, and he was clearly the best player in the league. But for all his brilliance, Brown could not get his team back to the championship game. And people began to wonder if it was time for a coaching change in Cleveland.
Paul had gotten a little arrogant. He didn't want to adapt to the new things that were being done. You know, Ally Sherman had some ideas, other coaches had some ideas, and Paul was the leader, so he didn't want to, he had me running from tackle to tackle. I wasn't getting any sweeps anymore, and I was disgruntled about that because I felt I was being hindered at that time. I didn't have the freedom I should have had.
Naturally, Paul resisted that. He's used to calling plays. He knows more than we know, and the whole thing. So for the first time in his coaching career, he has his players who question something that he is doing.
Also questioning Brown was the new owner, Art Modell. Modell purchased the team in 1961, and like the players, he found the head coach aloof and uncommunicative.
He didn't like my being in the office at 7:30 in the morning. He sort of was a little upset with that. And he sort of cooled. Our relationship cooled. It was getting awkward. The relationship was non-existent until in January '63, I called him into my office and said, we're going to go different directions. It was a blockbuster. The league didn't like it. Even Pete warned me. He said, the owners in this league won't like this at all. I said, well, I have to do what I have to do.
Modell replaced Brown with Blanton Collier, who was an assistant coach with the team for 9 seasons. Collier brought a warmth to the position that Paul Brown lacked.
Paul was like a businessman, and Blanton was like a human being. Then I needed Blanton because I needed freedom. I needed to be a human being that could play every aspect of the game, throw a pass, catch a pass, and have fun doing it. And Blanton gave me all of that.
They had an outstanding relationship between coach and superstar player. Jim just each and every week going to Blanton with different ideas, how to run certain plays, and Blanton was so open to these kind of ideas, you know, and Jim would just take it upon himself to try to make it even better.
Well, Blanton was a teacher. He could look at a guy and know if his footwork was wrong. As a pass receiver, he helped me tremendously. And most of all my years of playing football, he didn't holler at me.
Blanton would go around and talk to each player sort of individually about the game that had just been played and what was coming up next. And you could see him talking to a defensive lineman and getting this guy really charged up. And then over here talking to an offensive lineman and getting that guy charged up. So he had this ability to sort of to talk both sides of the ball, and had players believing in him tremendously.
The receiver that I had the most difficult with in the National Football League was Sonny Randall. Always caught passes on me. So I think we played, now he must have caught 3 touchdowns on me.
Walt Beach is the victim again as Randall makes a sensational grab for the touchdown to increase the Cardinal lead to 28-10.
But ultimately we won the game. And when I came out of the game, Blanton came to the locker and he said, a good game. And I said, a good game? I said, Cat just caught three touchdowns on me. He said, but you were scratching. He said, you were always right there trying to get the ball. And that's the kind of honesty or frankness Blanton had. And I know that Jim appreciated that.
When Paul left, I went to a different emotional and mental level because I didn't want people to think that my career was based on Paul Brown. And we wanted a new coach, and Blanton was our guy that was coming in who would allow us to express ourselves artistically. Therefore, I took it to another level mentally, which brought me to another level physically. I practiced harder than I ever did in my life, but it was mentally driven. And then what happened, I got to a level where I could go 80 yards and wouldn't be tired at all. That year, it was an awesome kind of experience for me, you know.
In 1963, Jim Brown set an NFL record by rushing for 1,863 yards. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry. But under Blanton Collier, Brown was allowed to do more than just carry the football. He was a bigger part of the passing game, and the entire offense benefited. In 1964, the Browns won the Eastern Conference, and as they prepared for the championship game against Baltimore, wide receiver Gary Collins, number 86, rashly predicted the Browns would win, and he would score 3 touchdowns.
He told us all week that we were going to win this game, not to worry. The coaches, the coaching staff, the assistant coaches, they were concerned that this would be in the paper and headlines in Baltimore. But Gary, that was his personality, and he performed like he knew what was going to happen.
Oh, I believed it, but then after I said it, I didn't think so. I said, now I got to back this up. Yeah, I believed it. I think Blanton sort of said something like, don't throw some fuel on the fire here. We have enough problems. You know, they were 13-1. I mean, remember, they had Unitas and Raymond Berry and Lenny Moore, which were stars, big stars. And you read about them. We were just the Cleveland Browns.
I think it definitely, being underdogs helped us a lot. You know, they wrote us off for that game. I mean, completely off.
And the night before that game, as the team would generally do, we went to a movie together. Turned out the Colts were at the same movie. And there was a little heckling that went on. And I think that just sort of set a little spark. The next morning, people started talking. Can you imagine that guy said that sort of thing, you know? There was a little psychological mixing going on there that came out to our advantage.
The Colts band provided more motivation when they serenaded Jim Brown at the hotel the morning of the game.
Maybe 10 or 12 of the Colt Brigade comes in, you know, the Colt Corral comes in. And believe it or not, they start to play taps. They start to play taps. And just before we get ready to get in his car, there at the hotel, he says, "Woo." And I guess I can say this. He says, "We're gonna kick the hell out of these guys today." You know.
The Browns were at home, but they were 10-point underdogs to the powerful Colts. For the Browns to pull off the upset, they would need more than Jim Brown. On this day, victory would require a team effort, and it began on defense.
One play in that game, one play, made the game for us. It was a screen pass to Lenny Moore. And Galen Fisk, our outside linebacker, penetrated the screen and threw Moore for a 10-yard loss. Turned the whole game around, that one defensive play.
He was in the flat against Lenny Moore. He was the only one that could make that tackle. If he doesn't make that tackle, it's a 70, 80-yard touchdown. He made just a great, great play, and it ignited the fans, and it kind of ignited the entire city of Cleveland.
The game was scoreless at halftime, but the Browns were gaining confidence.
I can remember Gary Collins saying, "Okay, now this half is our half. They wasted their half. Now this is half is the Browns half."
Like I said, when you're young and crazy, you say things. But I felt it. I felt that we were going to win. I apparently had passed on to my teammates because the score indicated that they believed it.
Lou Groza kicked a 43-yard field goal to put the Browns ahead. Then Jim Brown broke away on a 46-yard run to put the ball deep in Baltimore territory. That's where Gary Collins began turning his words into deeds.
First touchdown pass was a broken pattern. I thought I was going to hit. Then in those days, the goalposts were on the goal line. I thought the ball was going to hit the crossbars. And if you watch the film of the game, I actually flinched, and I almost dropped it.
But Collins didn't drop it. In fact, he didn't drop a single ball all day. Later in the quarter, he scored his second touchdown on a 42-yard pass from Frank Ryan. And in the fourth quarter, he completed the route with touchdown catch number 3.
I was 6'4", Bobby Boyd was 5'10", and the ball came in over both our shoulders, and I reached for it, and he was too short. I was 220, and he's 190, and ended up a great catch.
Collins' spectacular performance earned him MVP honors.
Well, it's funny, all week I told Dick Shafrath, and this is true, I said, I'm going to win that Corvette, and we're going to win the game. And he laughed. And I did say it. Not publicly, I said it to him. Because up to that point, no receiver had ever won the MVP. And I really thought, even after a great day, that Frank Ryan would get it.
Collins drove off in the MVP car, but for the Browns and their fans, there was enough glory to go around.
After the game, we couldn't even get off the field. I can recall for the next 3 or 4 weeks, didn't matter where we went, whether it was to dinner or the grocery store or wherever, people would just come up to you and say, thanks, you guys were great, we love you all.
And people can remember things in that game. Everybody in Cleveland remembers the fist hit on Moore and, you know, the Ryan to Collins. I mean, people remember it like it was yesterday because, unfortunately, we haven't had another ring since then.
This is the last of the World Championships before the first Super Bowl. So it's not a championship ring. It says on there, World Championship.
The Browns retained their championship glitter through the 1965 regular season. They posted the league's best record at 11-3, and Gary Collins had 10 touchdown receptions. The Browns defended their title on a snowy day in Green Bay, Wisconsin. They had to battle both the Lombardi Packers and the elements. It proved to be too much. The Packers won the game, and for the Browns, it was the end of an era. Jim Brown was about to quit pro football for Hollywood.
You see, I was thinking about retirement. I wanted to retire that particular year. Modell said, no, you got 2 more years. I want you to play 2 more years. I said, well, how could he figure 2 more years? Or why should I leave it up to him to figure 2 more years? So I went to London to do the Dirty Dozen, and we were running late, and I told him that I was going to retire, but Modell came out in the papers and he said, Jim Brown will be fined so many dollars for every day that he was late.
He took it as a personal affront, and he announced his retirement in England.
They just made a mistake. I would have played 1 more if Modell had been a little more careful in his statements to the newspaper.
Jim was a very proud guy, as I said before. He felt his pride had been wounded here in terms of, you know, the situation, and he just, that's Jim. Once he makes his mind up, he's gone. He's gone.
I wish I had taken my decision back. I'd like to have had him for another year or 2.
Blanton says, I want to tell you something, but you're not going to mention this even to your wife, your friends, your neighbors. Of course, we were in training camp. He says, Jim Brown's going to announce his retirement tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And you talking about ball players looking at each other? That was hard to take. He could have played 10 more years if he'd wanted to.
And we all have to remember that, you know, this man retired when he was 29 years old. Physically, he could have played at the same level for at least another 4 years minimum as a top running back. Can you imagine where his records would be today? I mean, they would be completely out of reach.
My standards are based upon how I think. Therefore, I don't want to stay anywhere too long. I don't want to hang on. I don't want to get traded. I don't want to be the secondary guy. I wanted to have a career, a full career, have it peak, and leave and do other things. I played 9 years. I didn't miss a game. And I left at the age of 29 years old, and I was MVP of the league. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a career like that. I like to start and like to finish. And I was fortunate enough to do that, so I'm proud of that.
Filling the shoes of Jim Brown would not be easy, but Leroy Kelly was equal to the task. Kelly was a rookie on the 1964 championship team, an 8th-round draft pick from Morgan State. He sat behind Jim Brown for 2 seasons, but he showed great promise on special teams. In 1965, Kelly led the league by averaging almost 16 yards on every punt return.
When Blanton found out that he retired, then he came to me and said, well, look, you know, Jim has retired. I'm going to give you the opportunity to play, you know, the running back position, you know. So I said, great, I won't let you down.
Leroy Kelly took Jim's place, and we were just really happy that he didn't miss too many steps from Jim. Jimmy was the greatest back, I think, of all time, but Leroy stepped in and he helped to make us forget Jim.
In his first year as a starter, Kelly averaged 5.5 yards a carry, and he scored 16 touchdowns. He won the rushing title each of the next 2 years and led the NFL in rushing touchdowns all 3 seasons. At 6 feet and 200 pounds, Kelly wasn't as big or powerful as Jim Brown, but he could find the end zone. He scored 49 touchdowns in his first 42 starts. Cleveland's other big offensive weapon was wide receiver Paul Warfield, number 42. A native of Warren, Ohio, and a graduate of Ohio State, Warfield understood the Browns' tradition.
I put on that Cleveland Browns uniform, the orange helmet, the seal brown, burnt orange, and those colors. I felt like I had to perform like those who had preceded me. The Otto Grahams, the Marion Motleys, all of those great players, because they set a standard, and that standard was up there. And I always had to play at that level. So there was something very special about playing in that old stadium, where every time I stepped on the field, when I came out of that dugout, there were 83 to 84, 5,000 fans. And it was electricity in the air. You wanted to excel. One wanted to give his very best.
Warfield's best meant averaging more than 20 yards per reception for 7 consecutive seasons. His consistency was typical of the Cleveland offense.
Being able to execute, that was a premium in the Cleveland Browns system. When I first joined the ball club, there were a lot of teams that always felt that they were physically tougher than the Cleveland Browns, and maybe some of them were. You know, and when we would meet at the end of ball games at midfield, I would always hear this comment, we should have beat you guys. We're tougher than you guys physically. Yeah, but they couldn't execute.
The Browns went 9-5 in 1966 and 67. They won 10 games in 1968 and again in 69. This streak of 13 consecutive winning seasons was the longest in pro football, yet the Browns could not carry that success through the postseason. Bill Nelson, number 16, replaced Frank Ryan at quarterback and led the Browns to the playoffs 3 years in a row. Twice they defeated the Dallas Cowboys to advance to the NFL championship game, but each time they fell short of the Super Bowl. In 1970, Art Modell made a big decision. He agreed to move the Browns to the AFC as part of the NFL-AFL merger. That year, the Browns had the honor of hosting the very first nationally televised Monday Night Football game. A record crowd of more than 85,000 filled Cleveland Stadium and saw Homer Jones return a kickoff for a touchdown as the Browns defeated the New York Jets. But the team's fortunes declined from there. The Browns finished the 1970 season at 7-7, and Blanton Collier stepped down as head coach. Over the next 8 years, Modell went through 3 head coaches, and the franchise fell from the ranks of the NFL elite. In 1978, Modell hired Sam Rutigliano as head coach. Rutigliano was a native of Brooklyn, New York, who spent 11 years as an assistant coach with 4 NFL teams. Everyone agreed Sam was a smart guy and a nice guy. The question was, did he have the right stuff to be a head coach?
You know, being a nice guy and getting the job done is, you know, really two different things. I think sometimes people think that a coach should have a gray shirt, a whistle, and just holler at everybody, and as a result, he's going to be successful. I don't think that's the way. My greatest contribution as a coach, I would say, is I think my ability to be able to relate to people. I'm not a genius. I don't think I'm any smarter than any coach in the league, and there are probably a lot of them that are a lot smarter than me. The thing that I've never had a problem with on every level that I've ever coached is my ability to relate to people and hopefully to extract from them the very best of the God-given talent that they have. And as difficult as it is with the pressure of the situation and us sitting in a virtual pressure cooker week after week, I would really like to extract some fun out of this job.
It's going to be a dogfight, and we know that it literally can come down to the very last play of the game, and regardless of what happens, just hang in there together. And at the end of the day, we would have taken one hell of a giant step. I'm dreaming again. To Pasadena.
The Browns found a quarterback in 13th round draft pick Ryan Sipe. In 1979, Sipe led the NFL with 28 touchdown passes. In the backfield with him was the electrifying Greg Pruitt, number 34, who averaged 5 yards a carry over a 4-year period. In 1979, the Browns added a second Pruitt, Mike Pruitt, number 43, who posted 4 1,000-yard seasons.
Broke a tackle, he's going all the way for a touchdown! Mike Pruitt breaks the game wide open with 3:35 to play!
The team added another dynamic weapon in Ozzie Newsome. An All-American wide receiver at Alabama, Newsome was moved to tight end by Sam Rutigliano.
When I sat down with Sam, he was very frank. He said, you could be a good receiver in the National Football League, but if you take this move to tight end, you can be a great tight end. And we're not moving you there not to utilize you. We're moving you there to throw the football to you.
I said to him many times, and he proved it, if a linebacker can cover you, you can't play. I mean, a linebacker, I don't care if it was Lawrence Taylor or it was the best linebacker in the history of the game, they could not cover him one-on-one.
Newsome averaged 16 yards of reception as a rookie, and he scored 9 touchdowns in his second season, as the Browns became one of the most explosive and entertaining teams in all of football.
Come on, baby, one time, baby, one time!
Charles Whiteside slips a man 25, 20, breaks a tackle, 15, 10. He's down to the 5, another break, and he's in for a touchdown! What a run by Charles White!
In the 1980 season, the Browns earned the nickname the Cardiac Kids, because almost every game came down to the final minutes. Sipe became the first Browns quarterback to pass for more than 4,000 yards in a season.
And the Cardiac Kids are at work today. Another pressure play for Ryan Sipe.
Sipe to throw to Newsome, and touchdown! He got it to corner the end zone!
Ryan Sipe has now thrown for 4.
Another cardiac finish.
Oh boy.
The 1980 Browns weren't a dynasty like the Browns of the 1950s. They were a bunch of underdogs who refused to quit. And in that sense, they were the perfect team for Cleveland's blue-collar fans.
Cleveland as a city had had some tough times prior to that, and it was kind of the breaking out point for not only the football team, which in the early 70s struggled, in the city. They both, kind of merged together and made a comeback, and, it was kind of the comeback kids from the comeback town.
For the 1980 Browns, 12 of their 16 regular season games were decided by 7 points or less.
Feature split to the left. Ryan Sipe to throw. Throws it deep in the end zone. It is a touchdown again to Ricky Feature. That's 2 in a row.
In the final week of the regular season, the Browns needed a win over the Bengals in Cincinnati to finish 10-6 and clinch the AFC Central Division title.
The
Long time, baby.
I love everybody. Huh? What a game.
We got a game ball for everybody.
We've been in so many close games, it's just expected that somebody, Ozzie, Reggie, myself, Calvin, or somebody is going to make a big play to get the job done.
It's just been a treat for me. It's just, when the games are over with, and we've had some remarkable games, there's a closeness that I think that I feel with these three guys. Been able to do something a little bit special.
We had the mentality that we felt like we could score anytime from anywhere. We could strike. We had some great personnel. Not only did we have Ruck and Logan, but we had the two Pruitts and Calvin Hill, and Brian was hot as a firecracker that year. We just felt like at any point when we walked out on that field that we could come away with 7 points. It was fun playing.
The Browns opened the playoffs at home against the Oakland Raiders. But the weather conditions were so severe, there really was no home field advantage.
I don't know why a game should have been played that day. During the TV timeouts, I ran over to the heater. I mean, you couldn't stand up. I mean, it wasn't football. When you're playing and you're competing, you can remove the weather. That day, we couldn't remove the weather. The weather was a factor.
It was 0 degrees, with winds gusting at 30 miles an hour. The field was coated with ice. But early in the game, the breaks were going the Browns' way, just as they had done all season.
And Bolton goes 42 yards with a Cleveland touchdown, perfect interception.
Touchdown Cleveland Browns, the first score of the playoff game.
The Raiders put together 2 scoring drives to take the lead. In the closing minutes, the Browns tried for one more miracle finish. Sipe drove the offense 73 yards through the wind and across the frozen field. With less than a minute to go, the Browns were deep in Oakland territory, needing only a field goal to regain the lead. That would have been the safe call, but the Browns hadn't played it safe all year. The Cardiac Kids only knew one way to play, and that was to go for broke. Going for broke meant going for the end zone.
The emotions are going in the stadium. The Cardiac Kids are getting ready to do it again. And we have an invincibility about us as the offense. I mean, we've been in this position before. We loved it. You know, this was a chance for us to do it again. The play came in, red right 88.
Red slot right, you go in. No, the red slot right, left back stay 88. Let's go.
Which was a play where Reggie and I was going to do a clear out, and Dave was going to come underneath because the Raiders played all that man-to-man coverage.
That was a year when we were sort of letting it all hang out, so to speak, taking chances every game all the time. If we hadn't have been, we would have never been in that position. And we were taking a chance and we got burned.
But what happened on the play, I beat Mike Davis off the line of scrimmage, clean. If I break open clean, Brian is going to throw the ball to me, and that's what he does. And throwing into the wind holds the ball up, and Mike gets back just in the nick of time and makes the interception. And it went from elation, jubilation, to dead silence in that stadium.
Everything just stopped. It was like someone now had just turned the volume down. There was not a sound in the stadium. And I put my arms around him, and so I said, Brian, I love you. And that's all I said. I have no qualms. If I had an opportunity to do it all over again, under the conditions and everything that happened, I would do it. That's the way we lived that year. We lived on the edge. And we finished, maybe not on the positive side, but we finished and got there doing the things that made us what we were.
2 years later, the Browns headed to Los Angeles, hoping to repay the Raiders for red right 88. Sipe would get no chance to atone as he had been benched in favor of Paul McDonald, number 16. One touchdown was all Cleveland could muster. And with a second frustrating playoff loss to the Raiders, the Cardiac Kids' thrilling ride came to an abrupt halt.
To me, this game is so much a product of the thing that goes on inside of you and between your ears.
By not using their heads, the Browns missed one opportunity after another in 1984 and lost 7 of their first 8 games. Rutigliano's chances had run out, and Modell made a mid-season coaching change. Like the owner, the fans held out hope for a solution. Enter defensive coordinator Marty Schottenheimer.
Listen to me. All right. If you get a 6-1 gaps call, you're on the weak side, away from the wing, and the triangle's away from you, go pit.
Anytime that something happens on the field, as the player comes off, I immediately go to the player and I ask them, what did you see? Then, of course, you're in a position to correct him and say, all right, now this is exactly what took place. You understand that. Now you recognize this is what needs to be done in that situation.
Schottenheimer took pride in teaching, but he couldn't take the test for his players. He needed men who could execute. Rookie safety Don Rogers, number 20, was one who rose to meet the challenge. The defense finished 6th in the league in 1984. Rogers gave the defense punch. 4th-year corner Hanford Dixon wanted to give it some pizzazz. A team without a logo, without a mascot, became the Dogs virtually overnight.
It kind of caught on that we named the whole defense the Dogs, because we're out there on the field just having a good time and we're barking, and that's important. I think all great defenses have to have something they can identify themselves with.
The defense embraced its new moniker, thanks to Dixon and his counterpart on the left side, Frank Minifield. The two soon became known league-wide as the best corner tandem in pro football.
You know, we had been used to hearing other people call each other dog. And so we kind of picked up on that. Hanford really wanted to get the lineman to chase the quarterback, and so we felt like that kind of fit. We wanted dogs chasing a cat.
But like a dog chasing its own tail, the quarterback position remained unresolved. That is, until the following summer's supplemental draft.
Didn't expect quite a turnout here.
You got it.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think everyone's quite aware now of, I think, Mr. Rozell's rulings and, my present situation. And I'd like to start out by saying I was very pleased with the way things have transpired for myself over the last couple days.
Bernie Kosar was a natural, obviously, for Cleveland, being that he was from Ohio and a homegrown product, if you will.
It's a question, I think, of me being from the area, my commitments towards the Youngstown, Cleveland area, and me basically just wanting to go home.
By graduating early and evading the standard NFL draft, the Boardman, Ohio native and lifelong Browns fan maneuvered to make his dream come true. In the 5th game of the 1985 season, Kosar stepped in for an injured Gary Danielson and promptly led his team to victory over New England. Danielson's injury wasn't serious, but he knew that when it came to Cleveland fans and Kosar, it was love at first sight.
Hey, Barney, I know talent when I see it. I haven't spent much time talking to you about it because I can't do anything to help you. You're going to do it yourself. I'm excited for you.
But Marty Ball needs a strong ground game. Ernest Biner knew that well, but USFL veteran Kevin Mack was new to Schottenheimer's style.
From the time I stepped foot in Cleveland as a rookie, being taught by Marty, that was all he said, take it one play at a time.
Do it our way, one play at a time.
I guess he could tell, sometimes he might be getting a little ahead of himself, thinking about the next play instead of thinking about the play zone. He would tell me, just slow it down, take your time.
You just keep running and picking and looking, because there's going to be some holes created there. We're getting it, we're a little distorted right now, but we're going to be fine.
And just take it one play at a time. And that's what he preached to the whole team, really.
You just got to have a little more patience and it'll be there. Okay. Just got because it's there.
Mack and Byner made history in their first season together. The 1986 Browns were only the third team in league history to boast a pair of 1,000-yard rushers. Byner's 161 rushing yards in the playoff opener evoked comparisons to Cleveland's rushing greats.
Give is to Byner, follows Mack's block, got an opening, 40, 45, 50, Dolphin territory, 40, he could go, 20, 15, 10, touchdown, Ernest Ryder, 6 yards, unbelievable. Boy, was that shades of Leroy Kelly, Jim Brown, and a few others, what a run.
But Kosar had only 66 passing yards in the loss to Miami. And in 1986, new offensive coordinator Lindy Infante was charged with improving the aerial attack.
I don't have any preconceived ideas of what we have to get done to win at this point. I just hope that we can be diverse and everybody can get into the act.
Grieving the sudden death of defensive stalwart Don Rogers that June, the Browns turned to their leader on offense and found strength in victory.
The confidence in you is just, you've been growing in stature every week. Thank you. I just,
you see the maturity right away, the calmness in the huddle that he has, the better awareness that he has.
Surely Kosar was aware that the Browns had never beaten the Steelers at Three Rivers Stadium in 16 tries. Kosar was unfazed, blazing a trail through the Steelers wide enough for an ice cube to slip through.
Up to the 5, to the middle, to the 10, to the 20, opening at the 30, he might be gone. McNeil to the clear. Gerald McNeil will go for a 100-yard touchdown.
The Browns still were only 4-3, largely due to Mack's nagging injury and Byner's season-ending one in a loss to Green Bay. But the birthday boy picked up the slack, leading the Browns to wins in 3 of their next 4. With a dominant offensive line giving him time, Kosar made quick work of the Steeler defense in their November rematch. Kosar passed for nearly 400 yards, but he couldn't keep the Steelers from forcing overtime with a field goal. The Steelers needed a win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Kosar took delight in leading them to the slaughter.
Kosar wants to throw, pumping once, now throwing long down the left side. Slaughter has it, he's going in for a touchdown! The Browns won the game! 36-yard touchdown pass.
Pittsburgh was vanquished, and the Browns had just begun a 5-game winning streak that gave fans new hope that the Super Bowl was a possibility. Heading into the playoffs, Cleveland was the hottest team in the AFC.
It's the Browns against the Jets here at Cleveland Stadium.
All right, Russ! All right, baby!
Cleveland with a lot of momentum after the regular season, having won their last 5 games and 7 of their last 8, primarily through the offensive heroics of Bernie Kosar.
Seeking Cleveland's first playoff win since 1969, Kosar passed for a postseason record 489 yards. The Dogs knocked out the Jets' starting quarterback, but they couldn't keep New York from taking a 20-10 lead in the 4th quarter. As they watched their Super Bowl dream fading, The Browns hope for a little help from above.
Bernie throwing deep down the left side. Slaughter is open. He got the ball at the 5-yard line.
I tell you what, those people at left better come on back because this ball game is not over.
We're all celebrating like we won the game already. It was kind of, I guess, being a young team like we were, we were just amazed that he had caught the ball. I mean, we were in a position that we were in, either to win the game or tie.
Kicker Mark Mosley tied the game in the final seconds of regulation. Having won 2 games in overtime earlier in the season, the Browns were confident.
Hey, we've been here before. You remember? We've been here before, not once, but twice. Now, 3rd time's the charm for us. Hey, one play at a time. Here we go, here we go.
The Jets were helpless in the path of fate.
I think we were destined to win that game. A lot of people in this city kind of knew, it had been a long time since they had seen a Browns playoff win, that we were kind of destined to get that win and give the city a little taste of what they had been missing for a long time.
We are gonna win. We are gonna win. Here we go. 37-yard attempt. The kick is up. It is good. The Browns have won the game. The Browns have won the game in double overtime, and the stadium has gone berserk. Thank you. Super Bowl. The AFC Championship, folks.
Here we go, Brownies, here we go.
The 3rd longest game in NFL history was mere prologue to an even greater challenge.
Here we go, Brownies, here we go.
Hang on, folks. Fasten your seatbelts. We could have a shootout here on the lakefront.
Hey, go, Biscuits. Yeah.
I remember going to dinner the night before the game, and we're in a real nice Cleveland restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm with Carl Mecklenburg, and I'm with my mom and my sister who had come in for the game. And the 4 of us are sitting there having dinner, and just before our salads came, we heard somebody start saying, "Go Browns. Go Browns." And it started building into this crescendo, and the whole restaurant was going, "Go Browns." And then they started, whoa, start barking, and we're going, man, where are we? What's wrong with these people?
In frozen Municipal Stadium, Browns fans were warmed by their Super Bowl dreams. The Denver Broncos could do nothing to silence their clarion call.
Super Bowl! Super Bowl! Super Bowl!
Keep being far. I'm telling you, to be denied. Let's go. Let's go.
There's a gleam, man. There's a gleam. Let's get the gleam, all right? Let's go.
John Elway was pressured early, while Kosar had all kinds of time to find his receivers.
Well, the thing that most of us felt coming into this game is the 2 teams were fairly evenly matched, that it's probably the 2 best teams in the American Football Conference meeting for the championship. And Bob, they've played 47 minutes and 22 seconds, and nothing's settled yet, 13-13.
And it could still come down to something strange happening in the last minute or 2.
Take them all away, Bernie. Take them all.
Fontenot in the backfield on the 3rd and 6. Kosar, and he is throwing it up the near side for Brennan.
Having exchanged blows throughout a long championship fight, the Browns believed that their 5'9", 178-pound receiver had landed the knockout punch.
After the Browns went ahead on a touchdown with about 5 minutes to go, the very next kickoff, was like muffed by the Broncos.
All right, here's Mosley's kickoff. It's a floater that hits at the 15, skips inside the 5. It's all the way back in the 2. The Broncos can't cover it, and now they do it the 1-yard line.
It dribbled down to the 1.5 between the 1 and the 2-yard line.
And you're sitting there and you're just, you're on the radio and you're almost, ready to say, hey, we're going to this, not so fast.
Well, the crowd should get into this one, folks. Don't sit back in apprehension. Start cheering, because right now is when you can help rattle John Elway.
Cleveland really does have the advantage here.
Watson right, Johnson left. Elway in the end zone and throwing it. It's complete. Winder dives out to the 7-yard line.
1st and 98. 15 plays. Prevent defense. Tie score.
And then when he threw the touchdown pass that really only tied the game, everyone knew that that game was over.
I've never even met John Elway, and I don't know whether I'd shake his hand or punch him in the chops.
I don't think there's anyone on the Browns sideline and in the entire stadium that felt that they could win the game after giving up a 98-yard drive on their home field.
And just like that, it was wait until next year once again.
I still think it was wide. All I could think was just inches. That was the difference. And then I got home and my wife told me, she said, well, that game had about 75 plays in it. That it wasn't inches. We just didn't do enough to beat the Denver Broncos.
On a January day, the winds were swirling and the crowd was roaring in his face, and he just stuck it to us.
The Browns entered the 1987 season primed to make the entire league feel their pain and to finish what they had started the previous season.
I thought the Browns had an even better team. That was the year of the little mini strike for 3 games, and the Browns came out of it pretty well.
After the replacements won 2 of 3 games, the real deal returned to a Monday night stage against the Los Angeles Rams. The well-rested Dogs feasted and were now 4-2.
Intercepted by Felix Wright. He's going to go all the way for a touchdown. Felix Wright, second interception of the game. And right in front of the dog pound.
Life was good. The Browns were winning, having fun, and preparing for the playoffs. The defense was ranked 2nd in the league, the offense 3rd. But the Browns finished the season at only 10-5. In their playoff opener, a 17-point win avenged a close regular season loss to the Colts. But even before the clock expired, Cleveland was looking for the big payback.
When you work as one, nothing is beyond being accomplished. We did it our way. We did it 45 guys as one play at a time. The last one counts as much as the first. We took the first step of our second season to winning the championship. Congratulations, CJ.
We realized it's probably going to be Denver and us in the championship game. The first thought that I think we all had was that year was we had lost a game during the season that we shouldn't have, and that took away our home field advantage. So we knew we were going to have to fly out to Denver and beat them in Mile High Stadium, which is very difficult.
Playing in front of a hostile Denver crowd, the Browns knew that they could not afford to have any lapses in concentration.
Hello, everyone. Dick Enberg with Merlin Olsen, and we're delighted to be with you for this AFC Championship.
The place was actually shaking. The whole stadium was shaking.
Third and a dozen. Over the middle, incomplete, intercepted. It's intercepted on the juggle. Freddie Gilbert, number 90. Kevin Mack fumbles. And Denver says they have it. They do.
It seemed their entire offense was nervous. They were fumbling, dropping passes, tipping balls, and they fell behind.
One of the things that really strikes me about this football game is how horribly things had gone for Cleveland in that first half. And yet, they didn't give up.
We get in at halftime. Lindy Infante was our offensive coordinator. He said, we're down 21-3, but he made a profound statement to us. He said, well, we're going to play this game like it's 14-7. We're not going to come out, get into a 2-minute offense and just, throw it every play.
7 minutes left in the third quarter. Kosar to Bynum. Well thrown. Ernest Bynum. Touchdown.
Bernie Kosar was interesting right off the bat. Tall, gangly. I mean, he still looked like a little kid, even in his third and fourth year in the NFL. Not great mobility. In fact, absolutely awkward at times. Had to develop a style where he had one foot back so he could get away from the center more quickly because he was getting run over by his own lineman.
Right now, Kosar going into the noisy end of the stadium. 6 seconds on the 30-second clock. 4, 3, 2. Throwing for Langhorne, touchdown. Reggie Langhorne. The Browns have capitalized. The Browns have come roaring back, and you've got to sense the kind of confidence it takes from that far back not to lose your enthusiasm, to have the kind of courage to put it back in the end zone and get back into this game.
Having already found his way to the end zone twice, Byner found another hole in the Denver defense.
Down the middle, Byner's open. Ernest Byner with Lilly to beat. And Lilly finally wrestles him down at the 27.
Interesting to see the total difference in the styles of Kosar and Elway. Elway, the power pitcher, I mean, he's throwing it right through guys. Kosar shot-putting the ball. He's flipping it out with one hand, side-arming it.
We started to appreciate how good Bernie Kosar was in that second half.
Kosar and Byner, the men that Schottenheimer penciled in as his top 2 players. He said those are the last 2 guys I'd ever lose in a trade, and they collaborate again for a big Cleveland play. The other thing he said, when the going gets tough, we want the ball in the hands of Ernest Byner. Underneath the Slaughter for a touchdown.
After a Slaughter touchdown catch, Elway answered with a touchdown pass to stretch the lead to 38-31. The Browns had about 4 minutes left to exact revenge.
And then came the drive in reverse.
All I was thinking was, please, Bernie, make it happen.
Well, when you're a kid and you grow up some 70 miles from Cleveland as a Browns fan, you dream about certain opportunities. We all did it in our youth, put ourselves in the position of our heroes. Bernie Kosar grew up a Cleveland Brown fan. Now it's his turn to rally Cleveland. Up the middle, Byner. And a blast that opened quickly. Kosar to Brennan again. To the 24-yard line at the 2-minute timeout. The Cleveland Browns are 24 yards away from tying it again in Denver.
You had to reflect back on the year before, because just as Denver had stolen the game in the final quarter with that 1st and 98 drive, now it was the Browns in the second half that seemed to have all the momentum.
With the comeback almost complete, the Browns turned to the man who had gotten them this far.
Down near their own goal line. These are the toughest yards in football right here.
There was never any doubt in my mind that we should give the ball to Ernest Byner. He was the reason we were still alive at that point.
And then it happened.
Draw to Byner. Ernest Byner. Fumble the ball, and Denver has recovered. Oh, my! Byner had the 1st and goal and lost the ball.
After what happened the year before, if I was sitting home watching that, I wouldn't have had a television left. I mean, I'm sure there were bricks thrown through TVs on that one.
As he took that handoff, and the collision was made with Castile, I know my call was hesitant because I thought Byner was going in for the touchdown. Had he not hesitated at the goal line, that's when I stopped. I was about to say, Byner, touchdown. Oh my, 38-38. What a game this is. Instead, there was this silence for a fraction of a second. Byner frozen, and then you realize that he had fumbled the ball. I didn't see the ball come out.
Ernest Byner never saw him coming.
Jeremiah Castile, number 28, reaching in to strip that ball away. This Denver defense trained to reach at that football, to try to force those turnovers. They led the AFC this year in turnovers, tearing the heart out of Cleveland's offense.
Byner, who had picked up the first down, had ball out away from his body, and Castile, a reject from Tampa Bay, acquired on waivers by the Broncos, not only stripped it, but recovered it, and the biggest play of his football life.
The year before with the drive, the drive basically tied the game up. We still had life. As soon as that fumble occurred, it was over.
I know nobody felt as bad about that as Ernest did. You know, he felt like he had let us down, the city down, the team down.
I mean, he was hurt beyond... I can't even describe the depth of the pain that was in his eyes.
Unfortunately, it was what Ernest didn't see that created the problem for us. The way the play unfolded, the wide receiver was responsible for the corner. If playing bump and run on you, then you release outside, he'll cover you, and you just run up in the corner of the end zone. Well, what happened to the receiver is he wanted to watch the play. He took one step outside. Castile turned around when the receiver stopped to see what was going on, and he then saw the ball being run by Ernest.
And if that happened 1,000 times, Ernest would only fumble it once.
And we give them names. There's the drive, the fumble, Red Right 88. And anyone who grows up in Cleveland knows exactly what that means.
You begin wondering, what are we doing wrong? When are we going to just, find out that, as Sam used to say, that light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. It's sunshine, and we finally hit the promised land. But we've just had a lot of almost.
The door to the Super Bowl was closed, but open arms awaited the Browns back in Cleveland. Hundreds of fans welcomed home the shattered team, both doing their very best to mask their disappointment and heartbreak.
We'll be back.
I think they're great. They lost, but hey, they did good. They're still our Browns.
They played a hell of a game. They came back, almost had it. Next year.
Next year and every year, regardless of record, it was always clear who was tops in Brownstown. Schottenheimer's tenure ended after the 1988 season. The Browns moved forward into an uncertain future that required getting off to the right start. A revamped defense responded to the call in the '89 opener by forcing 8 turnovers, collecting 5 sacks, and 3 defensive touchdowns in an epic rout over their most hated foe.
Through the hands of Hodges, it's intercepted by David Mason for a touchdown. And the Browns strike again.
Only one stat did this game justice. Still, new head coach Bud Carson wanted to see more to prove that the Browns were truly contenders. In their first rematch with Denver since Byner's fumble, the Browns delivered a message to Elway. True to form, a last-minute field goal was the difference.
Low snap, the kick is underway. It may have the distance. It is goal! The Browns have finally beaten the Broncos by 1 foot.
The playoffs led the nation to cast their gaze towards Cleveland once again. The Browns welcomed their Lake Erie neighbors to Municipal Stadium. And finally, Lady Luck appeared to be a Browns fan. The Bills closed to within 3, but they made the mistake of kicking to rookie returner Eric Metcalf.
Metcalf has it at the 11, straight ahead to the 15, to the 20, to the 25, to the 30, to the 35, 40. Metcalf makes it at the 50. He might be gone. Eric Metcalf is gone for a touchdown. Eric Metcalf has stopped the Buffalo Bills. When Metcalf hit daylight, you knew it was adios muchachos.
But with 3 seconds left, the Browns needed a savior.
Fires over the middle. It's intercepted by Clay Matthews. The Browns are going to win. And the 77,000 fans who are here today will never forget it.
The third title fight with Denver lacked the suspense of its predecessors. Despite Kosar's furious comeback from a 24-7 deficit, the Browns could come no closer. The city and its team struggled to come to terms with the loss, as championship dreams suddenly became a mere memory. The 1990 season was a total embarrassment for the Browns and cost Bud Carson his job. But it did not stain the final pro season of the Wizard of Oz, the Alabama tight end whose unshakable grip on the football was a gift to all of Cleveland's faithful. Ozzie Newsome made his curtain call and exited stage left.
I remember Ozzie being, not a big talker. He was kind of a quiet leader, but when he had to, he would talk and step up and be the leader in the huddle.
One quiet leader out, one quiet leader in. Fresh off a second Super Bowl championship as a defensive coordinator under Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick seemed like just the kind of guy Cleveland was looking for.
Ladies and gentlemen, about 1 o'clock this morning, the Cleveland Browns entered into a 5-year contract with Bill Belichick, and it gives me pleasure to introduce to you the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns, Bill Belichick.
It gives me a great deal of pride and pleasure to now be a member of the organization. This is certainly one of the outstanding franchises in the National Football League, and I'm tremendously proud to be here.
Belichick had finally become a head coach after 15 years as an assistant. His new team's first win under his direction was a shutout against, ironically, the New England Patriots. And as the defense began to thrive, the gulf between quarterback and coach grew. So much that by 1993, an errant throw cost Kosar his job. A Week 3 benching opened the door for veteran Vinny Testaverde, who was acquired under Belichick's watch.
5-step drop for Testaverde, throws end zone, touchdown. Lawyer Tillman on the post pattern.
United in a hatred for Pittsburgh, fans remained divided over the quarterback issue. Testaverde took advantage of the stage and staked his claim to the starting job. Michael Jackson's 62-yarder was a jog compared to Metcalf's 2 punt returns for touchdowns.
Ahead to the 30, outside to the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, in the Steelers' territory, to the 40, to the 30, to the 20, to the 10, touchdown Brown! Unbelievable! Eric Metcalf has brought this stadium to its feet. It's Pandemonium Palace. You'll never see a better return than that.
Though the Browns were tied for the division lead 2 weeks later, Belichick made a call that haunts his legacy in Cleveland to this day. Citing Kosar's diminishing skills, he abruptly cut the 29-year-old hometown hero. Despite a poor finish in 1993, Browns fans had one reason for optimism the next season. Eric Turner was coming into his own.
O'Donnell from the shotgun. Rose timing pattern. Oh my, what a lick by Eric Turner, and now the crowd is really rocking. What a shot he took from Eric Turner.
That was a big-time hit.
The fourth-year safety was a presence Cleveland hadn't seen in its defensive backfield since the late Don Rogers. And that presence would pay off on a crucial down in Dallas.
Here we go. Harper goes wide to the left. Irvin wide to the right. Novacek in motion to the right. Aikman straight back in the pocket. Looks end zone to Novacek, but he's not in. He's down at the 1-yard line. 3, 2, 1. The Browns have beaten the Cowboys. The Browns have beaten the Cowboys. 19-14 the final. Novacek didn't get into the end zone, and the Browns come down to Big D and come up with a W to move to 10-4, and with a little help tomorrow have clinched a playoff spot. And we said the Browns had to have a hero, and it was Eric Turner. Who else that didn't let him into the end zone?
Thanks to the best defense in the NFL, Testaverde and the offense were able to prove their mettle in the playoffs against Parcells' Patriots. Vinny was on the run, but with a little direction, made the plays the Browns needed to win.
Block the corner!
The Browns soon had a lead they'd never relinquish. A proven playoff team with the league's top-ranked defense had reason to look forward to greater things in 1995. Yes, next year looked good for Cleveland.
It began September 6, 1946, when the Browns played host to the Miami Seahawks and won the game, 44-0 here at the stadium. And the Cleveland Browns era, as we know it, comes to an end today in this, the 51st Battle of Ohio between the Browns and the Bengals.
With a few handshakes and signatures, a city's civic religion had been whisked away without warning.
Well, I had heard the rumors from pretty good sources a couple nights before, and I didn't believe them.
You know, this is a town that is really just been a football town.
And I think that that's the big tragedy, is that the people who pay 30, 40, 50 bucks for tickets have no say in the future of something they care about.
Modell's reasoning didn't wash in Cleveland, and his legacy was ruined forever.
Well, yeah, he's number one on that list of sports villains, no doubt.
It was a team that was well supported, was a team that was loved. I mean, the tradition of the Cleveland Browns, I think, is as good as any in the NFL.
The early November announcement confirmed the swirling rumors about a move to Baltimore, and the team's fortunes on the field took a sharp downturn. Whether due to a shared sorrow with their fans or the thick cloud of distraction, the Browns truly became lame ducks.
Oh, apparently we can't go further south. Very sad day. As Harry Carey once said, you can't ballyhoo a funeral.
The team's 6-game losing streak was insult to injury, but it didn't truly sink in with the fans until December 17, 1995, at Municipal Stadium's last hurrah.
Hey, program! Souvenir football programs, final edition!
26 years season's ticket holder. I'm going to cut my seat out. You got it, man. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
No one knew if the sun was setting on Cleveland football forever. The team that had been shuffling idly toward its own grave rose up one last time with vigor, determination, and purpose.
Blake throws. Ball is tipped, intercepted by Pepper Johnson. 35 to the 30 to the 25 to the 20 to the 18-yard line. And the Browns are set up nicely.
While the playoffs were no longer a possibility, playing for pride had never meant so much as it did that December day.
looking, throws, Hartley, touchdown, Cleveland Browns. Vinny Testaverde a yard from the tight end from Illinois.
Just, you could hear the people dismantling the stadium, and it was, it was the sound of, chairs and furniture being taken out.
And quite a few fans are turning their attention to memorabilia at this point, Doug. There are whole sections here now without seats as they want to take a part of this storied place home with them.
But it was also really the sound of frustration, and heartbreak, and just walking out after the last game, and having people walk up and tears in their eyes and thanking you for having played here, and just the unknown of whether you're ever going to have football here again.
Game over. For the first time in team history, the Browns won, and Cleveland still lost.
As Dana Hall and several other players now head to the dog pound. This is quite a scene. Everyone is on their feet as the players continue to walk up in front of the dog pound. They just want to hold on to the memories, see some of the players for the final time. They just want to sit and stay warm in the memories of so many years.
Nobody wants to let this moment go. Nobody wants this team to go. Nobody inside these walls.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Fawcett Stadium in Canton, Ohio, and the 1999 Hall of Fame game. It is electric inside this stadium. The wait is over. Browns football is back underway.
Hey, we know what it's all about. It's about winning. Let's go win our three. 1, 2, 3.
The fans' collective voice kept the Browns' history at home. On a steamy August night at the Hall of Fame, the old became new. Head coach Chris Palmer wanted to see what he had in his top pick.
The #1 draft choice and #1 overall pick, Tim Couch, is in at quarterback.
Baseline line 76. All go. Hang it up there.
Couch drops back to pass. Protection's good. He's going for it all. Johnson's there. He's got it. Touchdown!
What a throw. What a catch. Off the fingertips.
Tim Couch to Kevin Johnson. Right on the button.
Tim's had a great night. It's showing great composure for a young guy.
Browns are calling on Phil Dawson to win it. Gardocki to hold. Snap is good. Ball is down. Kick is up. Kick is good. Browns win.
Not too bad.
And the crowd is up and roaring at Fawcett Stadium. Welcome back to the Cleveland Browns.
Everybody hung in there together. You played as a team. You won as a team. Keep it going. It's just the first week. Congratulations.
I couldn't be happier for the way we started the season.
It's hard to believe that we actually just played a game. We've been waiting for it so long, and then just like that, it's over with, and we're back in the NFL.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cleveland Browns Stadium. The dress rehearsals are over. The wait is over. What a scene here at Cleveland Stadium. Fireworks going off. This crowd is just going crazy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the 1999 Cleveland Browns.
NFL football was back where it belonged, and Sundays were Sundays again.
This is what we worked for since March. This is your chance to do something special. Let's light this place up.
After kickoff, fans were reminded that they had an expansion team.
Here comes the rush. Detmer's got time. Throws down the middle. It's going to be picked off by Chris Oldham.
We'll get it back. We'll get it back. We'll get it back.
Stay in your game. Stay in your game. Stay in your game.
Stay preseason, Omar. Let's play some football.
Couch on his first snap. Back to pass. Steelers coming with a blitz from the left. He hangs in there, throws, and it's picked off. Scott Shields intercepts Tim Couch on the first pass that he threw.
The new Browns were down and out early. It seemed that Cleveland's mix of former 49ers, rookies, and expansion draftees would need a miracle to win even once. But the fans never lost faith that, indeed, A miracle was right around the corner. "56 yards away from victory, Tim Couch made the throw of his life.
Couch with 2 seconds to go, being chased. Heaves one down the near sideline to the right. Looking for Kevin Johnson. Ball is tipped. Johnson! He's got it! He's got it! Touchdown Browns! The Browns have won their first game! Unbelievable! Kevin Johnson made the catch on a deflection!
Winning on a Hail Mary was one thing. Conquering Three Rivers Stadium was quite another. But Couch was undeterred.
Back into the pocket, looks to the middle, got a man wide open. It's caught at the 5 and in, touchdown, Kevin Johnson. Tim Couch to Johnson, and the Browns take the opening kickoff and go right smack down the field.
Good protection on the opening drive. Caught the Steelers off guard.
Strangers in a strange land, the Browns quickly made themselves comfortable.
The snap coming, Stewart throws, John Deere intercepts the ball and falls at the 20.
Managing to keep the game close throughout, Couch set up Phil Dawson to win the game and avenge their humiliation in the opener.
39-yard field goal attempt. 4 seconds, 3 seconds, ball placed down. The kick is up, the kick is down the middle. The kick goes good! The Browns have beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh!
Oh my goodness!
Unbelievable! The Cleveland Browns have won their second game of the year and have beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh!
Though 2 wins were all for the expansion Browns, owner Al Lerner had plenty to be proud of.
This Cleveland Browns football team that played today in a very unfriendly stadium can beat any team in this league on any Sunday. And I'm just looking forward to it. This is the best day so far since I've been in this business. I just want to win. I don't much care whether it's Paul Brown Stadium or any other stadium. I just want to have a higher score than the other team.
That continued to be a rare occurrence in 2000. A dismal 3-13 campaign cost Palmer his job after just 2 seasons. The Browns were off to a false start and hoped Butch Davis could guide them to respectability.
We're pleased to announce that the Cleveland Browns have a head coach that's ready to take over the leadership and management of this team and take us to the levels that we expect.
I am thrilled to death and very honored that Mr. Lerner and Carmen had enough faith to trust me to become the head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
In 2001, the team grew under Davis and finished 7-9.
Here's Couch back to pass. He's throwing right corner of the end zone. It's Kevin Johnson! A touchdown with a minute 15 left.
But the Browns learned what loss truly was the following season. Al Lerner's passing left them without the guiding force that had helped return football to the shores of Lake Erie. A United States Marine, Lerner's sense of duty was steadfast. His Browns felt the same way the week after his death.
3rd and 4. Couch, he's going to get hit. He rolls away. Now he pulls the ball down. Now he throws into the end zone. Touchdown!
A little Houdini for Tim Couch.
And now the Browns can tie it with a 2-point conversion. Couch rolls to the right on a play-action fake. He gets hit. He throws into the end zone, and they come back and make the catch.
Dennis Northcutt's catch sealed an amazing tribute to the Browns' fallen leader.
Lerner family, we all love him. And he'll always be with us, guys. He's going to always be the thumbprint on this organization. And I know that man's got a smile on his face. He got his hat on, and he's smoking a cigar right now. He's smiling big time because he's proud of his Cleveland Browns.
The Browns kept getting divine assistance in their quest for the playoffs.
Looking long. He's got time. Is this like New Orleans?
Got it! Touchdown! 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 It is like New Orleans. The unbelievable has happened. He got it! Quincy Morton got it! Unbelievable Hail Mary!
Butch Davis takes his son Drew and throws him up into his arms as they come across the field.
That's the biggest clutch catch I think I've ever seen. By all right, guys, and everybody knows it, we're getting out of here with a win that maybe we should have left on the field. Now, I'm going to tell you what, we ain't giving it back.
But Couch's luck ran out early in the final game of the season, leaving rookie running back William Green to carry the team to a wild card berth.
He was drafted #1 and he struggled, and the call-in shows, they were ready to wash him. I had teammates that were ready to say the guy's he's a bust, he can't play.
Green's 178 rushing yards quieted the critics for at least one Sunday.
William Green bounces wide. 20, 15, 10, 5. He's in. Touchdown!
I think, all of a sudden, it's a big word in sports, but that respect had returned. Hey, we have a football team again.
Holcomb is back, looking, fires, he's got a man open, touchdown! It's KJ!
There's a damn good chance you're going to do it again.
And soon, the playoff dream became more and more real.
On second down, they give it to Green. Green stutter step, he's through. First down, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, William, run! 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown!
We've been waiting for it to break the big one, but he saved it for the right time.
Possibility of a 2-minute deal, composure, hand signals, and that kind of stuff, okay?
But the Browns needed a fourth down stop on the goal line to save the season. The Browns denied Atlanta at the goal line, and an 8-year drought was over. Cleveland had playoff fever again.
Let's let those fans know, guys. Let the fans know about it. Hell yeah. Randy, today, this was for your father, okay? This is for the Browns for the future. Congratulations to both of you guys.
Although disappointment awaited them in Pittsburgh the following week, the 2002 Browns did all they could to make the Lerners proud. The next 2 seasons would see the sun set on the Browns' fleeting fortune as championship dreams once again fell further and further away. A fresh leadership team emerged as new general manager Phil Savage hired a veteran assistant fresh off 3 Super Bowl victories.
Well, I get the spotlight, huh?
But few Clevelanders recognized the man in that spotlight.
You might ask, we don't know much about you, and so what type of coach are you? I'm a teacher. I can teach football. I can teach fundamentals. I can teach technique.
So take him wider. Take him up the field until you almost get on McNair's shoulder and then come back. Because that way McNair shouldn't be looking to step up.
I'm a communicator. I can get across the message to the players.
You got to decide which side of that film you're going to be on. Whether you're going to be champs or whether you're going to be chumps.
I'm not Newt Rockney, but I can motivate. All right, guys, play for me.
I need rushers. I need rushers. Let's go.
Conducting training camp in yet another humid summer in Berea, Romeo Crennel was still living the dream.
Just another lovely day in paradise.
You better do a little bit better than that. You better do better than that.
But this was no vacation.
Let him throw the ball over your head twice. That shouldn't happen. Give me some rush, do your job, and play some defense.
The defense got the message and responded in an early game in Green Bay.
Far back, in the pocket, in the middle, throwing left sideline. Ferguson's wide open, and then Gary Baxter stole the ball in the end zone.
Cleveland was also excited about the superstar potential of rookie wide receiver Braylon Edwards.
He's ahead of the field, 40. He's to the 50, 40, 35, 30. Braylon Edwards gone, 10-5, touchdown.
Number 1 for number 17.
To win on the road in the NFL is a tough thing to do. So this ball, all right, goes to the 2005 Cleveland Browns. You got that first pickle out of the jar, okay? And there are a lot more down there.
Yes, sir.
All right, you got to fight just like you fought today.
The weight of tradition can be a lot for a Brown to have on his mind. As the team celebrated their 60th season in 2006, the former greats were all on hand to witness a new generation of Browns talent that proved ready to take up the mantle of greatness. After nearly 2 seasons lost to injury, Kellen Winslow had a return to remember. He returned to the spotlight in style when he scored his first career touchdown.
Right back, throwing right, caught. Winslow at the 5, stiff arm, touchdown in the right corner.
Way to go, K2. The first guy he goes over and hugs is the trainer because they've spent a lot of time together.
He had the injury his rookie year and then the motorcycle accident his sophomore year, so to speak, and I don't know that anybody had real expectations for K2 in 06.
Winslow had a family legacy to uphold, and he began proving his own worth in his first full season. Crennel also liked how young defensive stars Sean Jones and first-rounder Cameron Wimbley emerged alongside new veteran leadership.
I felt like our veteran leadership, we brought in Willie McGinnis. Those players, have shown the younger players, how to be a pro, and I think, we're finally developing somewhat of a culture of what it takes to be successful in the NFL.
Despite a hard-luck season, the 2006 Browns gave hints of what was to come.
Takes the snap, play action fake, back in the pocket, steps up, goes into the end zone, up high, Braylon Edwards up, got it, touchdown!
Derek Anderson introduced himself to Cleveland fans by overcoming a 2-touchdown Kansas City lead.
After you get knocked down, do you get back up? If they wanted to, they could have laid it down against Kansas City, but they kept fighting, and ultimately, we won the game.
From the Kansas City 45, Anderson to throw. He shuffles right. He's got the corner to run. 45, 40, 35. He stutters. He's down the sideline. He's running to the 20, 15, and inside the 15-yard line to the 13, Derek Anderson.
Soon, the Browns' veteran kicker was called in to put one through the uprights.
Snap back, ball down, kick on the way. It is up. It is good, and the Browns win in overtime.
What an effort today.
No one gets an easy ride to the top of the NFL. The Browns learned that the hard way since 1999. Fans watching the 2007 NFL Draft hoped that the team would consider a certain fisherman from Wisconsin with their pick.
Okay, with the third pick
In the 2007 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select left tackle Joe Thomas, Wisconsin.
I'm thrilled, Coach. I'm really excited. I think I'm going to fit in great with the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns also drafted a franchise quarterback, Brady Quinn. But fans pleading for the future to start now found that the present wasn't all that bad.
Throws left corner in the end zone. Jeremicius, he's got it! Touchdown, Browns!
Great throw by Derek Anderson over the shoulder. Nice play.
Anderson over the middle. Winslow got it at the 5, at the 2, into the end zone. Touchdown, Kellen Winslow!
With Winslow's touchdown began the finest season ever by a Browns receiving duo.
Here's Braylon Edwards. He's got it! Touchdown!
4 touchdown passes on the afternoon for Derek Anderson.
Anderson's bomb gave the Browns a 34-24 advantage. And a stalwart offensive line, including rookie tackle Joe Thomas, number 73, helped them keep it.
He's going to hold 35, 40, 45, 50. He's down the sideline, 40. He's in open field, 20. 66 yards. He used to do that against the Browns. Now he's doing it for them.
Jamal Lewis's 216 rushing yards should have made him the star, but then Anderson tied a team record with his 5th touchdown pass.
What a catch by Braylon Edwards! And he goes in for a touchdown! He did it! He did it! Braylon Edwards laid out at the 2, caught it, he wasn't brought down by contact, and he spun in for the score!
With 28 seconds left, the Bengals were driving.
The Browns lead by 6. The ball is just shy of midfield. Here's Palmer back to pass. He's got mountains of time. He throws down the right sideline. And picked off by Lee Button.
Let's go, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'm finna go out here and get a sack. Watch the flip side of it. Watch the power O! Hey, oh, watch the power O!
Willie McGinnis was determined to lead by example.
One, let's go! Keep talking. Keep talking. Let's play. Let's give them the business when they come.
Here come the Browns showing blitz.
You know where we going. I'm right here again.
Right up the gut, they're breaking in. Lemon's got to get out of there. Being chased by Willie McGinnis. Throws the ball in, picked off. Bowden's got it. Up the sideline, 40. Cuts across the middle, 25. Brought down by the quarterback, Lemon, inside the 25. At the 24-yard line. Perfectly done.
The gate to AFC North supremacy had crept open. A confident Browns team arrived in Pittsburgh, poised to rush through.
The Browns are 5-3. What a surprise it must be for the Steelers to be playing the Browns today in November with first place or a share of it hanging in the balance.
And a former Kent State quarterback stood ready to take the first step.
It's one thing to be fast and just outrun everybody or cut back across the field, but he just does incredible things.
Reed into the ball, and he lines it down the field. It bounces, and Cripps had it bounce off him. That's a live ball. Back by the goal line. He's got to come out with it. He's to the 5. He angles. He's up the sideline. He's still running.
Joshua Cribbs truly arrived in 2007, becoming one of the 2 most dangerous returners in the NFL.
Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Unbelievable run. An effort by Joshua Cribbs.
On the way there, he got hit blindsided from the side. His whole body's turned over. His arms are all out of whack. It looks like he's going to fall over. Somehow, he stays in bounds, regains his balance, and just takes off. He's unbelievable.
Cribbs put air in the Browns' sails, perhaps just enough to carry one of the strangest field goals in NFL history.
This is it, second week in a row for the tie. End over end, it is up, and it is! Oh, it hit the crossbar, it hit the upright, and it's no good!
Oh, it hit it and bounced back into the field of play.
Looks like the Browns have lost it. The officials are huddling in the end zone, but the teams are heading into the locker room.
Even without instant replay available, the Browns hoped that justice would be served.
After discussion on the field goal hit the top of the crossbar, went over and hit the extension on the backside, which in fact is a good field goal. It bounced back. The field goal was good.
We are tied!
In overtime, Dawson was the hero again.
Dawson's kick is up, and the kick is good! And the Browns win! No replay needed!
Lewis proved to be the downhill runner Crennel and the Browns have needed. His 163 yards against Buffalo in a driving snowstorm gave Dawson the chance to work his magic. After clearing room, the only player to remain with the Browns since expansion won yet another game.
Snap is back. They place it down. Dawson's kick is a line drive, and it is off the crossbar and good! He did it again!
Santa didn't leave any playoff games beneath the tree, but the 2007 Browns did make history.
When we started this thing off, nobody said we could win 10. You won 10. That puts you in the top third of the NFL. 10 wins, okay? Set a home record for victories, all right? Set a home record for victories. In the history of the Browns, no team has won more at home than you have. I told you in training camp, when you do good, I do good. I'm doing pretty good, guys.
A constant thread of tradition weaves its way through Cleveland Browns football, connecting today to the past in every play. The spirit is kept alive by the best fans in football and renewed every September on the banks of the Great Lake Erie. With 6 Pro Bowl players in 2007, today's Browns know that now anything is possible. Anything. Even a Super Bowl.
With the kicker to beat! He's in the 10, the 5, touchdown!
A city forged in the heat of heartbreak will always be ready for next year. For when the leaves turn in autumn and brown and orange coats everything from Public Square to Hunting Valley, from Parma to Shaker Heights, hope reigns supreme in a place that we call Brownstown.
This NFL Films production has been brought to you by NFL Network. Watch the